Alright everyone, I want to talk about Android 21. This is one of my favorite leaders of all time, as evidenced by the fact that I've got my double-sided foil leader here. It's a leader that used to be very strong and has the ability to tap your opponent's battle cards and unisons for energy for your Android 21s, which is something no other leader can really do. It's just a really cool leader, and I refuse to give up on it, so I have rebuilt the deck. It was hit super heavily by a ban list about a year ago, and I think some new cards that have come out for it really kind of can allow it to shine once more and maybe, do well at a couple fun little tournaments. Is it tier 1? It's close. It's a lot closer than it has any right to be given the fact that it was so heavily destroyed on a ban list. I used this deck to win, or to top, sorry, not win, 3 back-to-back regionals about a year and a half ago, and we recently got some new cards for it. After the bannings, we had some pretty heavy hits to Android 21, but I love this deck to death, so I'm going to bring it back. And yes, for those asking, I do still play Dragon Ball Masters, even though the latest videos probably would have you think otherwise. We're just going to go through it here. So for 1-drops, 4 Android 18 Speedy Substitution, 3 Android 17 Defending Friends, and 2 Android 21 Mandatory Gathering. Android 17 is just the standard Floodgate card. I'm sure if you've played Blue before, you know what those do. Android 21 is a search, and it also makes clone tokens. Since you can't use Pan anymore to make your opponent have more battle cards for your 21 effect, Android 21 can kind of do that for you. It can make clone tokens on your turn, which is something none of the other clone token creation cards can do. Also, it's a easy turn 1 play that just allows you to search for your pieces that you need. Android 18 is really important here, aside from being a search. Since we're going to be ramping cards into our energy from the top of our deck blind, we need a way to grab those cards back just in case we ramp our secret rare or something, and that does that as well. That's why we play 4 of them. For Android 16 Energy Amplification, the reason we play this, aside from general ramp, since we lost our old 2-drop ramp play to the ban list, we need something to replace it. Now, this does mean that we can't play battle cards between 30 and 35, so we have to creatively change the deck a little bit. No more 17, no more Oob. It takes a couple cards out of the deck, but we can work around that, as we'll see later. We also can play Restoration, which is a card specific to Android 21. What this does is it's a 1-cost negate, and then if we have 16 in our hand, we can play it for free. So a lot of times on turn 3 or 4, you can Restoration negate a big card, play Android 16 and ramp another turn. Put that aside for now. We're also playing 4 super combos at 2-drops. I like Android 18 Bionic Blitz. You could also just play a standard draw. I would probably say don't play the bottom deck 2-1, although now that I think about it, I don't have any base green cards in here. So you know what? You actually could play that. You could play the bottom deck 2 Vegeta draw, or bottom deck 1 draw 2. However, I like this a little better. It's multicolor, which is really nice. It's also an Android, so it's searchable. Another option is you could play just a standard 1K draw 1. That's an Android. That's searchable as well. That's kind of a preferential choice. 3 copies of Trunks Heroic Prospect. A lot of times your turn 2 play, if it's not going to be a Android 16, it's almost always going to be Goku Frieza Final Battle Wish. And that means you immediately have your Trunks active and an energy open, so you can protect yourself. It's really important to have that option, and that's why I play 3 of these. At 4-drops, we have 4 copies of Full Power Counter, 3 copies of Total Audacity, and then 3 copies of Dr. Uro Reckless Science, which is a new promo card from the most recent tournament pack. I'll talk about that in a minute. We play our allotted 1 copy of Majin Buu in our Transcendental Predator Secret Rare. Obviously, this is amazing in this because we can tap our opponent's battle cards and unisons in order to play it. It's also unison removal, which is not super easy to come by in a blue leader. So a lot of times you're using this to heal 1 or 2 as well as get rid of a big unison. Majin Buu, everyone knows what that does. Full Power Counter is a Floodgate that removes a card on your opponent's turn as well as being a green-blue energy we can put in play untapped, so that's really important. That's why we play 4. This is our draw power. Unfortunately, our options for Android 21s to play is a little slim, so this is kind of the one we play when we don't have anything else we want to do. It draws us 2 cards, it's a double strike. Also, it plays a clone token on your opponent's turn, so it can help set some things up. Now let's talk about the card that made me want to put this deck together, basically. Dr. Reckless Science, the way he works is, he is a free counterattack. He doesn't negate the attack, but he plays himself. And then he is a blocker with Revive Blue-Green. And you have a ton of blue-green cards in your deck, so this is like always going to be live. The only thing you have to do for it is tap a Scientist Leader, which Android 21 is indeed a scientist. She's one of like 3 cards. So basically, you don't have to attack with her to get your draw, which means this is always live and you don't lose any advantage by doing so. On this side, she just takes a life to draw cards. On this side, she just draws cards by untapping your opponent's cards. So you can literally turn 1, leave this open. If they attack, you can just play this for free. You just tap your leader. So free 20k revive blocker is pretty great in here. You can pitch extra copies of it in order to revive it back, and it just makes it really hard for them to actually break through you. It adds to the already large amount of blockers you already have. For 5 drops, we've got Measureless Strength and a Bad Omen. Bad Omen's just a finisher, it does 1 damage, a lot of time it'll win you games. Measureless Strength is another card that can come in untapped. That's a blue-green. You need to get to 2 green cards in this deck, so you can play a lot of your big cards require 2 green energy. So if you're not against a green deck, you need to get 2 green down, and there aren't any mono green in this deck, so you need to hit a couple of these. Also, if you need to, you can pitch it to search top 4. Usually, though, it almost always just goes in the energy. For 7 drops, we have 2 Energy Frenzy Kefla. This card's really good. What it does, since not everyone's familiar with it, is it is reduced by 1 energy for every blue battle card you have in play, which this deck tends to be very sticky. You have things like Trunks, you have things like Android 17 that just tend to like kind of stay on board, as well as Dr. Uro, because he is pretty hard to get rid of too, unless they're like specifically in red or black. And then once it's on the board, you can pay for as little as 3 for it. And in this deck, since you're going to be ramping, you can also play higher amounts for it, and it's not really that big a deal. But all it does is draw 2 at the end of the turn, untap 2. So it gives you more draw power in the deck, and it allows you to untap energy for plays on your opponent's turn. For 8 drops, we have 4 Android 21 Ceaseless Despair, 1 1718 Siblings Revived. So 21 Ceaseless Despair is kind of your win card. It's actually a lot better than it was before. A lot of the things that used to take it down aren't in the meta as much anymore, because the real problem with this card is if it dies on the turn you play it. The only thing you really have to look out for with it now is Petrification. There's a lot less like mid-battle removal and stuff going in the game currently, just how the game's played. For those that don't know, you play it out. It costs 8, but keep in mind it's an Android 21, so you can tap your opponent's cards for it. It's double dual deflect, and then the first time every time your opponent uses a counter skill, they have to discard 2 cards, and at the end of the turn, you untap 5 energy. So it's pretty common between that and this that you're untapping 6 energy at the end of your turn, and you can basically just play on both players' turns. Also, it's a free 10k combo in Android 21 leader, so you can use it that way as well a lot of the times. This is a fun little tech, 1718 Siblings Revived. Since we can't play 30k battle cards, we kind of need other win conditions. This actually might get ticked up to 2. I haven't made a final decision yet. It is Deflect, Double Strike, Dual Attack. When it's played, you can put any number of your opponent's battle cards ignoring barrier on the bottom of the deck, so it's a board wipe, and then at the end of the turn you untap a blue energy, which is nice, so you can play it, tap yourself out, and get your energy back. But the real broke thing is, whenever this card attacks, you look at your opponent's hand and place 2 of their cards from their hand in their energy in rest mode. And keep in mind, with dual attack, you can do this twice. So essentially what this does is take the best 4 cards in your opponent's hand and charge them in their energy in rest mode. You can do some insane things. You can charge secret rares because there's no restriction on this. You can also like charge super combos. I was playing in a game this weekend. I attacked twice and charged all 4 of my opponent's super combos to their energy and basically just instantly won the game. Now we're going to go on to extra cards. It's pretty standard though. 4-dimension magic, 2 Chilled Army Reinforcement, and then the 2 Restoration I mentioned earlier, just a bunch of negates. Nothing too fancy, pretty standard blue deck stuff. For the Z deck, we have 2 copies of Goku Frieza. I actually might be taking this down to 1, as in my testing, I literally never needed to play a second one. Oh, that's my energy marker. We're playing 1 copy of Black Kamehameha Mighty Blast, 1 copy of Dr. Gero Android Creator. This is solely in here, so if we need to get our Android 17 online, we have a way to do it that has Barrier and only costs 1 Z energy. 2 copies of Android 21 in the Name of Hunger. This card's great because with Zamasu Prelude to Destruction, we can make it an indestructible blocker. And a lot of the decks right now don't really have a way to get through that. Basically all green decks, the only way they have through it is Trunks. And the yellow decks also, as long as it doesn't die the turn it's played from like a negation, don't really play a lot of negations right now either. So they also don't have really a good way to get through it. Keep in mind, if we have this out plus like a Dr. Uro, it's going to be crazy hard for them to like get attacks through. That's just a lot of blocks. Especially if they kill this on attack, you can revive it and block with it again if you need to. That's just a lot of blocks they have to get to in order to get to your life. We're also playing a 1 Dabura Stone Transformation Nightmare, just a really good utility card, provides a lot of power. And 1 Broly Tyrant. This is just there for removal if we need it. It's a double strike that's very cheap to kind of finish our opponent off. Here is the full build for you guys. I really like how it's coming together. I've managed to kind of reduce the deck down. Originally it was running at like 57 cards and I had to cut a bunch of stuff. Obviously there's a couple small changes that could be made, but I feel like it's pretty well rounded. The additions of Dr. Uro really helps the deck where it was struggling before. And maybe one day we'll get some of our stuff off the ban list. I know people get really annoyed with this deck, so this might be unlikely. But of course I wanted to play my very fancy, I gotta show off my alternate art Seeker Rare. For this deck, as it's one of my favorite decks of all time, I splurged on it. But yeah, if you have any ideas for the deck, let me know. Maybe there's something I missed. It's not a deck that sees a lot of play right now, but I think this is like a solid tier 1.5 deck after playing with it. Is it as strong as like the tournament winning decks right now? Maybe not, but it's way closer than it has any rate than it should be, given how badly it was hit by the ban list about a year ago. One of my favorite decks of all time. I really wanted to share it. Leave comments below if you have any ideas. I'd love to hear new ways to improve the deck. And everyone have a nice afternoon.